People who overthink often hear the same sentence over and over again. Just stop thinking so much, as if it's a switch you forgot to turn off. But here's the truth most people never tell you. If your mind won't slow down, it's not because you're weak. It's because your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do, just in the wrong environment. Think about this for a second. Your brain evolved to scan for danger, predict outcomes, and prepare for what could go wrong. That ability kept humans alive long before modern life existed, and some people's brains never stop being good at it. If you overthink, your mind doesn't drift randomly. It locks onto possibilities. It runs scenarios. It connects patterns other people don't even notice. And that's why overthinkers are often described as deep, intense, or too much. But here's the uncomfortable part. The same brain that can imagine 10 outcomes is also the brain that can't rest. Because modern life gives you infinite input and zero resolution, your brain keeps asking, what if? What did that mean? What happens next? And it never gets an answer. Most people assume overthinking is emotional. It's not. It's neurological. Research shows that people who overthink tend to have higher baseline activity in the default mode network, the part of the brain responsible for self-reflection and future planning. In simple terms, your brain doesn't idle easily. It stays on. That's why silence feels loud. That's why distractions don't really distract you. And that's why telling yourself to relax makes it worse, because your brain interprets that as a problem it needs to solve. Here's something most people don't realize. Overthinking isn't constant. It spikes when uncertainty is high and control is low. Your brain is trying to regain stability, not punish you. If this sounds familiar, you're not broken. You're just wired for anticipation in a world that never closes the loop. And once you understand that, everything starts to make sense. What makes this even more interesting is that overthinking often disguises itself as responsibility. Your brain tells you that replaying the same thought again and again is productive, that you're being careful, mature, or prepared. But neurologically, that's not what's happening. Studies in cognitive psychology show that repetitive thinking without new input doesn't lead to better decisions. It leads to mental fatigue. Your brain burns energy without creating resolution. This is why overthinkers often feel exhausted even after doing nothing. They're running simulations that never reach an outcome, and the longer this loop continues, the more familiar and comfortable it feels. Familiarity, even when painful, feels safer than uncertainty. That's the trap. Let's talk about what's actually happening inside your brain. When you overthink, your brain isn't stuck. It's searching. Specifically, it's searching for predictability. Your nervous system is designed to calm down when it knows what's coming next. That's why routines feel safe. That's why uncertainty feels exhausting. Overthinkers have brains that are extremely sensitive to unresolved information. Loose ends feel threatening. Unanswered questions feel heavy, so your mind keeps replaying conversations, analyzing tone, rewriting moments, not because you enjoy it, but because your brain is trying to finish a task it believes is incomplete. This is called cognitive closure, and overthinkers crave it more than most. Here's the problem. Modern life rarely gives closure. Messages go unanswered. Situations stay ambiguous. Social signals are inconsistent. Your brain doesn't know when to stop. And when it can't resolve externally, it turns inward. That's when overthinking turns into rumination, not curiosity, not insight, just mental loops. And here's where most advice fails. People tell overthinkers to distract themselves, but distraction doesn't resolve uncertainty. It just postpones it. So the thought comes back, stronger. What actually helps is reframing the role of your thinking. Overthinkers often believe their thoughts are warnings, but most of the time, they're simulations. Your brain is testing possibilities, not predicting reality. Once you learn to label thoughts as mental drafts instead of truth, their emotional weight drops. You don't need to stop thinking. You need to change your relationship to thinking. That's why overthinkers who channel their minds into writing, strategy design, or problem solving often feel calmer. Their brain finally has somewhere to put its energy.
There's also a biological reason why your brain resists letting go. The human brain is wired to avoid loss more strongly than it seeks gain. Psychologists call this loss aversion. When you stop thinking about a problem, your brain interprets it as giving up control, even if there's nothing more you can actually do. Overthinking becomes a way to hold on to the illusion of control. But here's the paradox. The more you try to control uncertain outcomes through thought alone, the more anxious you become. This is why people who overthink often feel calm only when they're actively worrying. Silence feels dangerous because it removes the mental activity that creates the sense of preparedness. Overthinking isn't about solving, it's about soothing fear in the short term. Here's the part most people never hear. Overthinking isn't your enemy, it's raw processing power. Left unmanaged, it becomes anxiety, but guided correctly, it becomes clarity. The difference is where your thinking goes. When overthinkers don't have an outlet, their mind turns inward. When they do, it turns productive. That's why some of the most thoughtful people you know also struggle the most at night. Their brain doesn't shut off, it waits for purpose. So instead of asking, how do I stop overthinking? Ask, what is my brain trying to prepare me for? Because once your mind feels useful, it relaxes. And here's something important. If you recognized yourself in this video, you're not alone. A lot of people watching this feel the same way, but never talk about it. So I want to ask you something. Do you see your overthinking as a flaw or as a tool you never learned how to use? Tell me in the comments which one feels closer to the truth. And if you want the next video to go deeper into how to redirect overthinking instead of fighting it, let me know. Because this channel isn't about fixing you, it's about understanding how your mind actually works. And once you understand it, everything changes. This is also why advice like just stop thinking about it never works. Your brain doesn't release thoughts through force. It releases them through replacement. Research on attentional control shows that the brain can't simply turn off focus, it can only redirect it. That's why overthinkers often calm down when they're deeply engaged in something absorbing, writing, building, learning, creating, not because the problem disappeared, but because the brain finally found a task that feels more real than imagined danger. This is the shift most people miss. Overthinking fades when your mind senses forward movement, not answers, not certainty, movement. And that's why the most effective way out of overthinking isn't insight, it's engagement. If this resonates with you, pay attention to what your mind clings to when things slow down. It tells you more about your fears than your thoughts ever will.